So today we're going to be looking at yellow printer dots, and we're using the features of our Video ToolBox Ultra software. And we'll use the software both to show you how to make the yellow printer dots easier to see, and also to use some of the other features of the software to create a workflow that makes it easier to compare the printer dots on different documents if you want to determine whether or not they were printed on the same printer. And even if you are going to attempt to use some of the websites to try to decode the information, which we don't necessarily recommend. We kind of take no position on that, but we'll show you some of the features in the software that would make it easier for you to do that. So just a quick summary. Many color printers embed a pattern of yellow dots onto the page to make it easier to track which printer was used to print that document, and potentially there's other information that's embedded as well. And you can use a camera or digital microscope to actually detect and analyze those dots. So what we've got going on here is we have a setup with our MiScope MP3. It's on an articulated arm. We're about 8x magnification here. And I should say that we're not really using any of the special features of our MiScope. So we're not using high magnification or infrared or ultraviolet lights. So you could just as easily do this with a camera or any other low power microscope. And as I said, really what we're going to be demonstrating are some of the features in the Video ToolBox Ultra software. So here we have a live image showing a page. You can kind of see there's something on there, but it's not easy. And what we're going to do is turn on the live color space feature of the software, which lets us look at different channels in different color spaces. So we're going to turn that on, and we have our options here for all these different color spaces. And kind of the most obvious one that you would jump to would in a CMYK space, we actually have a yellow channel. So let's go and look for yellow. And you can kind of see that there are dots there, but this is actually not necessarily the best choice. A better choice might be to go into the red, green, blue space. That's red, which is not the best choice, but blue is a good choice because blue is kind of the opposite in color space of yellow. And you can see as we select here blue that we can see these dark dots here, which we can move around. There are actually some other color spaces that work better than this. One of them is saturation space. So in the U saturation and value space, we're going to turn on saturation. And here you can see that that the yellow dots are highly saturated. And by making some adjustments here, we can bring out the contrast on that. So we can see these yellow dots. They're going to show up here as white because they're, as I said, highly saturated. Another space that works really well is lab space, CIELAB. Here we're going to look at the A channel. And again, here we can see that the A channel accentuates those dots. Now, and that's actually inverse, so the dots are going to show up as black spots here. Now, because we're going to be doing a lot of different things, including overlays and some measurement tools and stuff like that, what you probably want to consider doing is lowering the video resolution for your camera. So right now we're operating at the highest resolution. So we're operating at 2304 by 1536 or 3 megapixels. Because we're going to be doing all sorts of things that are going to take a lot of computing power, we're going to drop the resolution down to 1280 by 720. That's still going to give us more than enough resolution to see these dots, but it's also going to give us a little bit more speed so that as we kind of throw different things as different layers, we'll still have a very responsive system. So we're going to change that. We can bump our zoom up to 7/8. We're still going to get a nice picture. It's very responsive. But now here we're going to go back and turn on our color space again. And again, here is our LAB. So we have a nice contrast image. So here we can see the printer dots. And these printer dots are a repeating pattern. And excuse me, one of the things that we can do is we can highlight where this repeating pattern is, because it's there's kind of a lot here. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn on our measurement tool, and we're going to select our crosshair cursors. And crosshair cursors are basically just two crosshairs that we can move around. The way we can set this up is by clicking the mouse. That's going to set the first crosshair. And now as we drag the mouse, we're going to get the other crosshair. And you see that they'll make a box. So what we're going to do is we're going to look for some landmarks. And one good landmark is you'll notice that there are these double dots that are a little bit closer to each other than the other dot pattern. And you can see that we have one here. And as I move the red cursors out, you can see there's a second pair over here. And now as I move up, there's another set over here. And I shifted the page slightly, so let's just kind of shift that at least back, kind of line that up with our box. Here we can just use our mouse and grab the red. So we're gonna sit just to the right on the bottom, and up here, here's the other one. And so what we've done now is we've created a box that surrounds what would be the repeating pattern. Now, one of the tools that we have in the software is the ability to convert this box into a grid. So, and you can adjust that grid, but by hitting Control Y for yellow printer dots, we can now switch that box to a grid, and we can see that if we set this up appropriately, in this case it's a 15 by 8 grid, that grid pretty much fits around each of those dots. So we can kind of grid out these printer dots. So what we're going to do is let's just hide this for a moment. And what we'd like to do now is, if we want to do a comparison, then we'll probably want to take this pattern and maybe overlay it on a different document to see if they match. And so our video toolbox software has that option built in. And the workflow goes something like this. The easiest thing to do, we're just going to click first on the live image, and we're going to hit Control C. And that's going to put a copy of the live image into our clipboard. And now we're going to select the overlay button, and we're going to go here to graphic overlays, and we're going to into our overlay settings. And what we'd like to do is we're going to set it for clipboard. So our overlay is going to come from the clipboard. We're going to create it as a transparent overlay. The transparency is 50%. And now we're going to hit Load Overlay. And once we do that, here I'm just going to move around the live document, and you can see there's actually an overlay of the dots there, and we can look and see if the dots match up. And what we'd be looking for here are double dots, which is not the easiest way to look at this, but fortunately, Video Toolbox has a number of options for our overlays. And one of the options we have is what we call a red-blue overlay. That is, we're going to put the live image into the red channel and the overlay into the blue channel, and so we're going to actually see the dots as different colors. And in this particular case, an even better option is to use the inverted colors, and it's one of those things you'll take a look at as you do it. So here now we have red dots and blue dots, and now it is much easier to see when the dots are, side by side, whether all the dots are there. And we can change our color space for live images. So instead of being an A channel, we could switch it, say, to a blue, or we could switch it to saturation. So we have the option of doing all sorts of things here. So we'll go back to our A channel. And now one of the things we can do is we can go ahead and take another document, and we're just going to drop that in underneath here. And this document is live. So again, we can look for the marks that that we want to use to align it. We could also go back and put our box back on here, which is helpful too, because that helps us to find where the interesting part is. And now we can, as we did before, we can do a comparison. We can switch that to a grid, and we can just slightly offset that if we want. And we can see that these two documents were printed most likely on the same printer. At least the dots that they have match. So we can go ahead and find something different to look at. So for instance, here now is my driver's license, which also has yellow dots on it. Again, we can use our landmarks to match up the double dot patterns. One other thing is sometimes it's a little tricky moving a document around, and sometimes it's actually a little easier to move the overlay. So if I hold down the Shift key and click, I can actually move my overlay to line up, and we'll see that the dot pattern here from the driver's license has about the same spacing. But here, let's go ahead and make it easier to see by putting our grid back on. Here we can now see that there are certain locations where we have blue and separate locations with red, and that these dot patterns do not match. Now we could turn off our overlays, and we'll turn off our grid. And let's go back here, and here's our driver's license. Maybe we would like to compare this driver's license to a different driver's license, or maybe an older driver's license. So again, let's pick a good color space. So this is pretty good. We get a good definition here on our printer dots. So again, for our workflow, we're going to hit Control-C. We're going to copy this into the clipboard. We're going to open our overlay option. We are going to, again, load it in from the clipboard. And we're going to hit Load Overlay. And now we can see that we have the overlay that exactly matches the driver's license, which it should. Let's try taking our recently expired driver's license. See how that matches up. Again, we can move that. We can shift the overlay as well, and we can see that all of those dots match. Let's try somebody else's driver's license. So here is another driver's license. Again, we're going to look for the landmarks. So those double dots will become the landmarks that we're going to position in. Again, sometimes it's just easiest to get the last bit by moving our overlay around. We can also rotate the overlay, incidentally, by holding down the R key and rotating the mouse wheel, so we get a nice layout. Again, we can put our measurement grid on here, which maybe helps a little because, because now we can kind of line this up. And again, here now we can see within each grid box, there's a blue and a red dot. And so we have good correspondence. They all match up. And that's our demonstration of a workflow using our Video ToolBox Ultra software for comparing yellow printer dots. Thanks for watching.